The Civil War came to its end in 1865, and at long last, after 4 years, all the boys came marching home again to their hometowns to pick up their lives and get back to the things that really mattered, like baseball. Back then, every little town had a baseball team, and the chief rivalries between villages were decided not on a battlefield, but slugging it out on the ball diamond. Baseball was a matter of tremendous loyalty and civic pride, and a ball player would no more have considered playing for another town than they would burn the flag. It just wasn't done. It wasn't even considered, and no one ever got paid, except in food and kisses and whiskey, or under the table. And that is why everyone in Mansfield, everyone in Ohio, and everyone in the whole USA was outraged in 1869 when the Cincinnati Red Stockings put up $10,000 to assemble players from New York and Philadelphia to make themselves a championship team. The Red Stockings were nothing but heartless hired guns, and so when they issued a challenge to take on any town in the country, the teams all just lined up. Cincinnati played 69 games that summer in 27 towns, and 79 more the next year. They were the first all-professional team in baseball history. Understand that the first major league wouldn't be created for another 7 years, so in 1869 there weren't any teams in America that were ranked higher than others. They all belonged to the National Association of Baseball Players. The game was somewhat different back then. The batter was called a striker, and he told the pitcher where he wanted the ball. He was out if his hit was caught on the first bounce, and no one wore gloves. When towns finally organized for league play, Mansfield was part of the Ohio State League, and they were so good that when the first baseball cards were created in 1888, the set included a star third baseman from the Mansfield team. Today, you don't think of Mansfield as a baseball town, but even as far back as 1869, the biggest hotel on Main Street advertised horse-drawn omnibuses, leaving every 30 minutes for the ball grounds. Mansfield fielded league teams for 50 years, and two of the greatest players in the Hall of Fame played their first pro games in Mansfield. Hannes Wagner in 1895 and Ed Delahanty in 1887. In the 1930s and 40s, Mansfield was a farm team for the Boston Red Sox and Cleveland Indians, and during the Negro Leagues era, some of the most famous barnstorming stars of the game came to town to play Mansfield teams, including the greatest pitcher of all times, Satchel Paige, in 1941 at Liberty Park. But all this was long after 1869, when baseball was just getting started, and everybody in the country played for nothing, except the Cincinnati Red Stockings. They started the modern era of pro sports, and that's why the first pitch every year that starts the season is thrown out in Cincinnati. They earned their place in history honestly by going completely undefeated their first season and playing 95 games before they lost one. No one had ever seen ball players wearing high socks like that before, and sports writers wrote that when Cincinnati came onto the field, it looked as if they had waded through a river of blood to get there. Their famous tour of the U.S. took 2 summers and carried them 12,000 miles to both coasts. But it started on May 30th, 1869 at Yellow Springs, Ohio, where they were scheduled to play their first game against the team from Antioch College. The game was rained out that day, however, so the team moved on. And that's how it came to pass that the first ever professional baseball game in America was played in Mansfield, Ohio. On June 1st, the Reds came to town and took on the Mansfield Independents. The gate receipts totaled $50 a team, and at 25 cents a ticket, that means at least 400 people were there to watch the Red Stockings win, 48-14. The Richland Shield and Banner said that it was on account of the field being so rough that they lost. And that sounds like an excuse, but back then there was no ball diamond, and they played in a field mowed by hand. So, just where was this ball field where history was made? The Independents played their game on 4th Street, in a field next to Toby's Run, at the bottom of a steep hill. In later years, there was a grandstand built behind home plate next to the railroad tracks, and the park was called Davy Field where the industrial leagues played from local industries like Westinghouse and Mansfield Tire. But 4th Street eventually became part of the Lincoln Highway, the first route across country for cars to go coast to coast, and the dangerous steep hill next to the ball field was eliminated by building the big bridge that stands between Senior High and Arlen Field. A terrific amount of dirt was piled up for the bridge abutments that buried the outfield, and the stream was rerouted right through the pitcher's mound. The railroad eventually turned into the Richland B&O Bike Trail, so as you ride along there, you're passing behind home plate. And if you cross the 4th Street Bridge on the sidewalk, you are actually taking a walk from home plate to first base, only about 40 feet above where the Mansfield Independents and the Cincinnati Red Stockings did in 1869. So, sometime when you're standing around out in the outfield dreaming about the major leagues and thinking that nothing ever happens in Mansfield, just remember, it all started here.